Hello, and welcome to another episode of Legally Bound. A warning, please do not listen to this webcast or this video while you're driving. We care for your health and safety. I am CA Ghanshyam Karkera, your host. Let me introduce myself. For those who have not checked me out in Google, I am definitely a practicing chartered accountant, but I also have additional professional qualifications like the company secretary, cost accountant, lawyer, banker, and systems auditor. I am also an accredited mediator and arbitrator, an independent director with more than 40 years experience. And yes, I do have a blogspot and I'm also on Twitter. The entire idea of this channel is to share and spread knowledge which I have gained over a period of time, and with the new laws coming in, to make you all aware as to what is going to come and what you have to be prepared for. Today, we are beginning a new series under the labor laws. As you all are aware that the government has consolidated various laws in now brought about into action or as an act or as a code for various codes. We will look into them one by one. Today is our chance to do the one which was first off the shelf, the Code on Wages. I am going to explain the Code of Wages in 5 different videos. And in the current video, I am concentrating on Chapter 1, which contains the definitions and one additional Section 3. Now, many of you would not want to understand what the definitions are. Boring? Maybe. So let me tell you one thing. I am not going into each and every definition. I am going into only the pertinent definition which will be of use to you as you try to understand this act and as you go along into the various videos which I am going to upload. Like I said, there will be totally 5 videos, some small, some long. Having said that, let us try to understand what is there in the Code of Wages 2019. The Code of Wages 2019 was passed by the Parliament and it was assented to by the President of India on the 8th of August 2019. You are right, it's already 2 years. And yet this act has not been notified. It will be notified when the rules are ready. And when will the rules be ready? Oh, it will be ready when the state governments are ready with their set of rules. There will be one central government rule and there will be the rules as there are the number of states. So what is the Code of Wages 2019 trying to bring about? The Code 2000 on Wages 2019 wants to bring a consolidation of the other acts which are presently in vogue. So it intends to repeal the Payment of Wages Act, the Minimum Wages Act, the Payment of Bonus Act, and Equal Remuneration Act. Oh, don't be sad that the Payment of Bonus Act is going to be repealed or Minimum Wages Act is going to be repealed. No, everything will come here into this Code of Wages, but a slightly different consolidated way. Like I said earlier, this entire Code of Wages 2019 I have divided into 5 videos, and this is part 1 where I am going into the introductions and the definitions. So as you have seen that the Payment of Wages Act has been repealed with this code. I'll take that up in part 3. And then the minimum wages, I'll take it up in part 2. The payment of bonus, I will take it in part 4. The Equal Remuneration Act has been spread over in this code, not specifically, but it's there. Especially if you look at section 3, you will be understanding why this is there. And there is one more, that's part 5, payment of dues and claims. Now you will wonder, are we having only this much to learn in the Code of Wages? The answer is no. I have purposely not gone into certain aspects which you would know by a different means. Like I am not gone into the definition of appropriate government. It will be the state government or the central government depending on what you are or what type of establishment you are, or about the inspector and facilitator, because I think if you do your work, you may need the inspector as a facilitator, not as an inspector. And if you do your work and comply with the Code of Wages, you may not need the services other than the guidance which an inspector and facilitator can give. And there are other factors like advisory board, and above all, there's one factor which I normally avoid, and that is the penalties. The penalties or the various punishments, you can say punishments, which happen due to your errors of commission or omission in complying with the Act. The focus of my sharing with you all this video is that you will always comply with the law and you will not have any need to think about what are the offenses and penalties for which you will be liable. In simple words, comply with the law. Shall we go ahead with the definitions? Yeah. Now, the first definition, as you will see, normally definitions are in section 2 of any act or code. And I have taken F, the first one, and all the definitions are normally kept in an alphabetical order. So that's why we start with the contractor. A contractor in relation to an establishment means a person who undertakes to produce a given result or supplies contract labor for any work of the establishment. Now, what is an establishment? Establishment we will see when we come to that definition. So, a contractor can be supplying labor to you, or he might be doing some work for you. For example, he may want to tie up in bales the waste paper lying in your godown, or might be shifting of material from one place to another, or might be cleaning your premises. That is called a given result. That is, the contractor takes the work to be done and does the work as per your requirement. So there is a given result. And similarly, it can give you a contract labor who will work under your direction. That is, you are given a human resource to work. So what is a contract labor? We will understand further. So it's a human resource, whereas a contract is for services. A contract labor is, supplying a contract labor is to give the personnel as per se. So what is a contract labor? Here it says very clearly, section 2 clause G, that a contract labor means a worker. See, worker has also been defined. As we go along, you will understand what a worker is. So a contract labor means a worker. See, we will have employees, we will have workers. So there is a differentiation between an employee and a worker. All workers are employees, but employees are not. All employees are not workers. You have to understand this. So a contract labor means a worker who is deemed to be employed. It's not necessary that he is employed. He is deemed to be employed in connection with work of an establishment. when he is hired in connection with work by or through a contractor. That means to be a contract labor, you must be a worker and you must be hired through a contractor. It's very simple. Now, you may be hired with the knowledge of the principal worker, employer, or without the knowledge of the principal employer. That means the principal employer will not identify the contract labor that I want this. Not necessary. You tell the contractor, I want 10 labor. 10 labor will come. Who is coming and whether able or not is a contractor's responsibility. Of course, it should meet your requirement also. Now here, the phrase interstate migrant worker has been included. Now what is an interstate migrant worker? We'll have to understand it by looking at a different code by itself, where the migrant worker, interstate migrant worker has been defined and explained. So let us understand that a worker can be a migrant worker also. Interstate means coming from a different state than your own state. But it does not include a worker. Now which worker is not is excluded has to be understood. The main thing is that you are not a contract worker if you are regularly employed. By whom? By the contractor. For any activity in his establishment. So, a contractor cannot say that he is my contract worker if you are regularly employing him. There's a mutually accepted standards of conditions of employment, including engagement on permanent basis. So basically what it means to say that the contract worker is a temporary worker. But if he is getting periodical increment in the pay, like say today you are giving him 400 rupees per month, say per day, and then in future you are going to say in the next year you are going to give him a 10% increase and another 10% increase after another year, and you are giving him social security coverage, you are giving him PF and other benefits, or then you are not a contract worker. Simple. So having understood what is a contract worker, let us go to understand a definition of an employee. Now I have informed you earlier that what an employee is. Not necessarily employee is a worker. A worker is an employee, but an employee need not be a worker. So let us understand what an employee is. An employee is a person who is not an apprentice. So what do you mean by he is not an apprentice? Apprentices are into your establishment, employed with you for the sake of learning. They are not for the sake of earning. They get a stipend. They don't get any wage. So an employee is a person who is not an apprentice and employed on wages. Now wages here is not a loose term. It has also been defined. Alright. Now you will say wages are only for labor. Yes, you are right. The wages are only for labor and salaries are for staff. But in the payment of wages, salaries is subsumed into wages. That means the definition of wages includes salaries. So wages by an establishment is given to an employee for doing any sort of work, whether it is skilled, semi-skilled, unskilled, manual, operational, supervisory, managerial, administrative, technical, clerical. See, whatever this is there is a terms of hire. You are hired for your work and you are going to be paid for it. Whether the terms and conditions are express or implied, it doesn't matter. What matters is that you have been employed on wages. That means you work, I will pay you the wages. That is as simple as that. Now, it will include a person who has been declared as an employee by the government. But if you are in the Army, Navy, Air Force, no, you cannot be an employee. they have been specifically excluded from the definition of employee. Now, if there is an employee, there definitely has to be an employer. So let us understand who is an employer also. Now what happens normally, we feel that such and such private limited or limited is your employer. Here it made very clear that it's not the company per se who is the employer. The employer has to be a person. Be very clear. Employer has to be a person. So is a person who will employ, whenever I say he, it also means she, is a person who employs either directly or through any other person, that means through a contractor. He can employ one person or more persons. So be very clear, an employer, even if he hires one employee, he is an employer. And in case of government departments, then the authority will be specified as who is going to be the employer. Or if in case of a municipality or some other notified area authority or some authority like this, the chief executive will be the employer. So let us understand who all are included as an employer. If it's a factory, the occupier is the employer. And that is defined under clause N of section 2 of the Factories Act 1948. Now, the point to be noted here is the Factories Act is also repealed by some other act, which has not yet come into play. So, when the other act also comes into play, the other act or code which also comes into play, then this will be suitably either amended or the rules will clarify as to who is the occupier. We'll understand the main definition of occupier under the new code after when we go through that video. And even the manager of a factory is the employer. Okay. Now, in case it is not a factory, it's an office, then who is the employer? The employer is the one who is having ultimate authority in the controls of the affairs of the establishment. And what happens is that you may have a manager, you may have a managing director, then that person is the employer. So in case if it is not a factory but an establishment other than a factory, it will be the manager or the managing director or anyone who is in charge of the total affairs of the establishment. Similarly, the contractor is also an employer vis-a-vis his employees. And in case a person expires, then his legal representative, it's not his heirs, it is the legal representative of the deceased employer. For example, if a proprietor expires, then his executor under a will or any other such legal representative will be the employer as far as that particular employee is concerned. So, we have understood all this. Let's go ahead and try to understand what's the meaning of establishment. Very simple. Establishment means a place where any industry, trade, business, manufacture or occupation is carried on and includes government establishment. Many of you will do. Why? Your house is not an establishment. So if you are having domestic employees to help you in your domestic work, they are not workers? Yes, because it is not an establishment. To be an establishment, it is necessary that there should be an industry, a trade, a business, or some occupation. Factory has been defined as a factory under the Factories Act. We will not look into it much. Now, industrial disputes. If you know that there is an Industrial Disputes Act 1947, if I am right. So, that Industrial Dispute Act is also to be subsumed in one of these codes. which are coming in. The definition of industrial dispute has been given in this code because somewhere along, when the payment of wages are to take place, we have to understand what is the situation in case there is an industrial dispute. So the definition of industrial dispute has been given very simple. A dispute or a difference between employer and employer, employer and worker, or workers inter se. So you can have a dispute by any permutation and combination, which will be an industrial dispute, and it will be with reference to or connected to the employment or non-employment, or the terms of employment or the conditions of labor of any person. For example, if you are not having water facility, or might be the creche facility, or might be the canteen facility, is a condition of your labor. And if there is a dispute regarding it, that's an industrial dispute. Now, it's not necessary that dispute should be only between your existing employees and the employer. It can also be with any other individual who was your worker, and there is a dispute between that worker and the employer very clearly with reference to the termination of employment of such worker. The termination may be by virtue of discharge, dismissal, retrenchment, or termination in any other manner. So if there is an industrial dispute, what has to be done will be understood in future videos. Now, same work or work of similar nature. Now, this has been given specifically here because same work, same pay, work of similar nature, no discrimination. So, the idea is that we should be able to understand what is the meaning of same work and work of similar nature, so that there won't be any discrepancy or discrimination. If the work requires the same set of skills or efforts or experience and responsibility, and where the conditions of working are the same or similar, and the difference, if there is any difference, required are not of practical importance, then the work is same work or work of similar nature. In other words, if you look at a 25-year-old man and a 60-year-old man, a 25-year-old man will be physically fit to do a lot of work, whereas a 60-year-old man has vast experience and may be able to do work in a different and more efficient manner. So they will not be same work or work of similar nature. But if it is such that you just have to do some cleaning or sorting, then the work will be of the same work or work of similar nature. So here you cannot differentiate between your employees. You have to understand that. Now let us understand what is the meaning of wages. Wages has been defined in section 2, clause Y. Wages, understanding wages is the most important because the entire code of wages is for getting the wages. So wages means a remuneration which is payable by means of salary or allowance or whatever. It should be expressed in terms of money or being capable of being expressed. So if you are giving 1 kilo of rice, this value is 1 rupee or 35 rupees depending on what quality of rice and where you are giving it. Alright, so that is the value which has to be fixed. That is, it has to be termed in terms of money. And it is to be payable when the work is done. That is, if you have been employed for a specific work and if that specific work is done, you are entitled to wages. And what does this wage include? It includes basic pay and DNS allowance. And what is DNS allowance? DNS allowance is for meeting the extraordinary expenses due to the inflation or inflationary trends which are taking place. And retaining allowance, if any, that is, if you are being paid an retaining allowance for not leaving that particular job or being with this particular employer, that's also a part of your wages. So this is the meaning of wages. And in the next slide, we will look into and try to understand what is not included in wages. Wages does not include bonus. A. Does not include housing accommodation given or amenities given like light, water, medical facilities, creche facilities and all. And these are excluded from the computation of wages if there is a specific order or a general order by the appropriate government. I am speaking of the amenities other than highlighted here. PF contribution, pension contribution is also not wages. Interest accrued on your provident fund on pension fund is not wages. Conveyance allowance given to you might be 100 rupees or 800 rupees or 1600 rupees under the Income Tax Act, then that's also not part of the wages. Special allowances or expense given to you for defraying expenses by the nature of your job. You are a manager, you are in a high position, you have to entertain clients, then what? You will pay out of your pocket? Not necessarily. You may, but not necessarily. So any such allowance given for meeting those expenses to entertain the customers and clients because of your position, that's not part of your wages. House rent allowance, not part of your wages. You'll get all those, but they're not part of the wages. Remuneration payable under any award or settlement between the parties or order of the court or tribunal. If something is paid to you under an award, that's also not wages. Overtime allowance, not wages. Commission paid to an employee, not wages. Gratuity payable at the time of termination of employment by any way is also not wages. And retrenchment compensation or any other retirement benefit or any ex gratia paid to the employee on the termination of his employment is also not wages. Now there is a provision. And this provision is the one which is making everyone feel as to that there is going to be substantial burden on the employers in the times to come. Earlier, you will see that the basic wages were kept at the minimum so that the calculation of gratuity, bonus and all used to take place at a whimsical or a very low figure of the total salaries or remuneration being paid. Might be your basic was only 20-25%. So that the all other calculations, additional contributions were to be made at that low figure. So what has been done under this code is that say that basic wages, DNS allowance which you pay for the meeting the inflation in the cost of living, or retaining allowance which you pay to retain an employee. You can pay that plus all the various allowances from A to K. But from A to I, so J and K is not here. So J means gratuity, K means retrenchment compensation. Apart from this, all the other allowances or award, whichever is there, they should form maximum 50% of the total wages. In other words, your basic pay, your retaining allowance, your DNS allowance should be minimum 50%. And if the central government feels that it should be a higher figure, then 50%, they will make it so and notify it accordingly. So whatever percentage is, which is to be decided ultimately by the central government, which is in excess of 50%, will then be the wages for calculating wages under this clause. Now, wages doesn't end there, it goes further. It says that for equal wages of all genders, the emoluments specified under clause D, that is the conveyance allowance, clause F, that is the HRA, clause G, that is awards under the tribunal or due to some disputes which are getting resolved or an agreement, and H, this is overtime allowance. These all are to be considered in case of equal wages. That means if you are a male or a female or a transgender, all these allowances will have also to be equally in the same work, same type, similar type of work. And in case you are being paid in kind, then 15% of your total wages can be in kind. Though the drafting here is a bit peculiar, it says you can pay him wholly or in part in kind, but the value will not increase more than 15%. So I would not dwell on this because I feel that there is something wrong in the drafting in this particular explanation. Having said so about wages, let us go to understand what a worker is. A worker means, see, we understood what an employee is. Now we have to understand what a worker is. Again, worker is not an apprentice, or an apprentice is not a worker. Now, a worker is a person who is employed to do any manual, unskilled, skilled, technical, operational, clerical, or supervisory work. So that means even if you are doing a technical work or a supervisory work or a skilled work or clerical work, you are a worker. Now, a worker includes working journalist, sales promotion employee, and those who are in the Air Force, the Navy, and the Army are not workers. So, anybody is a worker for any proceeding under this code in relation to industrial disputes, even if he has been dismissed or discharged, and there is a dispute due to this dismissal or discharge. Now, as I said, Army, Air Force, Navy, those persons are not a worker. If you are employed in the police or you are an officer or an employee of the prison, you are not a worker. If your job entitles you to work as a manager or an administrative capacity, you are not a worker. If your salary is more than 15,000 rupees and you are employed in a supervisory capacity, or if the salary is more than 15,000, if the central government specifies, then you are not a worker. Now we have concluded the definitions. Let us understand one last section, that is section 3 in this particular video. There can be no discrimination on the ground of gender. If you are a male or you are a female, if you are going to do the same type of work, then you must be paid equally. You cannot say I'll pay 400 to a female employee, 350 to a transgender, or 500 to a male employee for same work. You have to pay them equally. Now here there's one condition. You cannot reduce the wage of any person to bring equality. Like I give you example, 500 to a male and 400 to a female. So in order to bring them equal, you cannot say, oh, I'm paying this lady 400 rupees, so I'll pay the male also 400 rupees. No, it should be 500 rupees to both. So you cannot reduce the rate of wages to comply with this section of non-discrimination on ground of gender. And even when you are going to employ a person, very clearly, you cannot make a discrimination if the work is same, every working conditions is same, and you are having two equally qualified or capable persons under consideration, then you cannot say no to a person who is a female or a transgender. You cannot say no to them, saying that I prefer to keep a male. Except if employment of women in such work is prohibited or restricted by the government. If there are no restrictions, you have to give equal weightage to any one gender. So you cannot have an employment exclusively for ladies or exclusively for gents. You have to strike a balance and take the best what is available in the market. So this was an introduction to the Code of Wages 2019. I hope you have enjoyed this video, learned from it, and are looking for the balance 4 videos which are in the pipeline. Please pay attention to whatever has been told. Go back and understand the things again if you wish to. And meanwhile, keep yourself safe. And there's one small thing. If you have liked it, please press the like button. Share knowledge with all your other friends, be they employees, employers, or professionals. And I would request you all to subscribe to this channel of ours. And I understand that you have to press one small bell for that notification. So if you press that bell, you'll get a notification when the other videos are uploaded. Please do it. Till then, remain safe and I'll see you in the next video. Goodbye.